Of course, we have purely running things around, but I'm more concerned about what this Vanquishal innovation is. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. Tables and Towers had their Duelist Nexus case tournament here, and these results actually might shock some of you because there's not a single Kashtira player anywhere in the top cut. Wait, Robbie, did you say that right? Yeah, it would appear at this point in time that Kashtira is it's still a top contending deck in a lot of regions, but it's kind of having a decent chunk of fallout here. And I actually think that that's hilarious that the deck is struggling. The fact that Purely has kind of come out on top of things here, all it took was, the deck getting the additional copy of the cat in order to kind of figure itself out and be like, oh, now we can go ahead and actually function. I actually think that that has been by far one of the best things to happen to the format, was the Cat in the Hat returning back. Now, the one-of section, we have Unchained. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not all that surprised to see that Unchained has been doing relatively well. The deck as a whole handles a lot of matchups and plays through a lot of things. And, well, to be honest here, the deck has a lot of gas. Alright, when it goes, it goes. And a lot of people are very genuinely surprised by how fast that deck can come in and hit hard. I don't know why that is, or why people aren't really prepared for the matchup, because we've talked about it a lot, but you do need to be aware that it's there, and it's a very competent deck. We also have Infernoble out here doing its thing. I don't have a lot to really say about Infernoble. It's full combo gas to the floor. We also have Scareclaw. I'm, once again, not surprised. I mean, any sort of time that you can have that deck in a rogue setting come up, it does good. Same thing with Brandon. These are two mainstay events. And then, of course, we have Vanquishal here. Now, this Vanquishal list is playing Revolution Synchron. We'll talk about that here when we get to the list, but they're trying some very interesting things. And I don't think it's something that a lot of people have really considered up to this point. All right, let's pass on over to this deck list. Our first list here is going to be Purely. So yeah, Purely came out on top, actually won the event. I do see that we are playing, of course, the one Purely Leap. There's no real changing the mentality of that, because sometimes making the big cat can be a little bit hard. We're also only playing 2 books in the main deck, but we are playing double draw, double Veiler. So we have a pretty strong, amount of coverage here present to make sure that, we can handle what we need to handle. I see that we are playing Summon Limit down there. Hey, being able to force the opponent to not be able to play the game does feel like an incredibly good thing at the end of the day. And then, of course, Azalea Anima. Most of this is pretty standard. And if you also want to, on the one-off chance that they do play against, the big annoying cat, they do play the Herald of the Abyss to force the interaction to get it off of the field. Because remember, it affects the player, not the card itself. It's something that people don't seem to understand out here, how the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually interacts with some of these choices. Next up here is our Unchained list, actually dragging this into the second place here. That's actually, gosh darn, pretty good being able to pull that off. I mean, most of the ratios on the main deck, to be honest with you, are what you're expecting to see. Everything Unchained ratios, yeah, these are perfect. I'm actually really fine with this. The Triple Mourner is an interesting tech choice. We've kind of seen this kind of speeding up in the format, which has been, once again, pretty good. I see that we are playing the Deus Ex Machina to be able to overlay on top of the DDD Ring 6. That's been kind of hit or miss if people are choosing to play it. I feel like it's more of a fairly recent innovation, though, for it to kind of, fall into place. So do kind of keep that in mind if you're looking at this and you're like, Robbie, like, is Deuce, worth it? I mean, if you got room for it, that's always going to be like one of the biggest things is, do I have room in the extra? Because this deck is pretty notoriously tight for, trying to fit in that extra space. Next up here, we have Infernoble with, oh baby, the Board Breakers. This deck needs ways to go second. I'm going to be honest with you. That's why you're playing the books, and that's why you're playing the Dark Roll and No Mores. Well, Robbie, what happens if, they can't, deal damage? It's fine. They're going to set up double Charles, and they're going to be off to the races. It's kind of like how this deck does its thing, all right? Like, you can board break, clear up your opponent's field, and then congratulations, you're just sitting on your negation. Your opponent wasted everything that they had in order to try to set up a field and punish you. And if there's no clapback, well, I mean, you're fine then. Like, what are you worried about that the opponent can actually set up and punish you with? The answer is, like, their Dark Rule no more, their clapback, but having those board breakers in the main deck, especially with the additional 2 down in the side, you need those cards, all right? Honestly, that's the best way to try to play this deck at the moment. So, those are my thoughts on Infernoble. Next up here is Vanquish Soul. Hi, Synchro Toolbox. How are you? I see that we're getting kind of saucy here with the Revolution Synchron. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video because Revolution Synchron opening up the Synchro Toolbox for Vanquish Soul is not something that I thought people were going to try. Now, obviously, I mean, you play triple copies of Durandal for the off chance that you want to make the Power Tool Dragon, which just automatically turns into the Crystal Wing. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. Maybe it was the Alistair the Invoker deck. Yeah, because they'll turn their Alistair into a Crystal Wing, followed by, you know, whatever else on the follow-up that they need to do here. And it's kind of the same thing that we're doing here. Outside of that, I mean, standard Vanquish Soul plays are going to be the thing, but now that we've unlocked Synchro potential, maybe this deck can actually finally cover some ground here. I love this deck, everything that it does, but man, oh man, it needs to be able to do something. Next up here we have Scareclaw. I still don't know where this build came from because most of the Scareclaw versions are usually, you know, a lot more... There's more Mana Diem stuff in here. Actually, there's no Mana Diem in this. We're not even, like, tacking in, like, any sort of stuff. And I guess we just opted to not need it, and Scareclaw just feels a lot more... stronger at the end of the day. Tryhard's a stupid good card. I like a big link 3 that the opponent has to stare at. Everything goes to defensive mode. I get it, and especially when you start, you know, investing into making it giga big, it's pretty good. And also, I mean, most of your hand traps here are going to cover your bases. All right, I mean, you'll be able to make Vicious a Shroud in here as well. The deck does well. It's one of those rogue picks that, you know, you might not put on the top of the rogue list, but it is something that you do need to be aware of. I mean, attacking from defense mode, what a mechanic. Alright, we have our next purely list here. And, you know, this might feel a little bit familiar to some of you, because I see that we still have the triple Droll in the main deck and the triple Imperm, and I see that we do have some talents and the thrust in here as well, but the ratios for talents to thrust in this is they cut off 1 thrust versus the first place list here, and we're still, you know, playing some sort of chunk of those. I also see down in the side deck, we are playing 1 copy of Dark-Hole. That way, hear me out here, you can thrust into it and board break your opponent. It doesn't pop up hardly ever, but it's just one of those really cute niche things that you can actually do. Gosh, the things that thrust can actually get you in terms of value is so stupid. Outside of that, Zeus Turbo here is doing the same things that it's done. I don't see anything. You're going to see so many purely variations out here, it's not even funny. And of course, the summon limit down there doing its thing. Next up here is our next purely list. Now, this duelist wanted to get a little bit more creative versus the other two. They're playing 6 books in the main deck. They were not having these huge boards. They are setting those floodgate monsters. They're turning them topsy-turvy, and I don't blame them. There are things in the current game that you're going to look at and you're like, yeah, that's not fun. And then, of course, you also have the crossout designator. So technically, you can use those against your opponent as well. You're getting a pretty decent amount of coverage out here in the purely department for this. You're still playing the Drolls. We're only on 2 Imperm in the main deck, but they are on 41 cards. You could really make the argument if they want to explore the option of, you know, upping the amount of cards present in the deck. But I don't think that that's something that... you're really going to try to push too hard for here. Yeah, I don't see anything else too crazy in this list looking it over. Once again, Slacker Magician's kind of cute, but yeah, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then, of course, our last list here is branded How the Mighty Have Fallen, all the way back here at 8th place. Of course, we are playing the Bysteel Luber in here. Okay, didn't think we would see that in here, but alright. We are on triple Book of Eclipse, so standard shenanigans with that. At least in the side deck. Triple Quem, okay. What is our triple Blazing Cartesia? I feel like they've maxed out on a lot of the numbers to try to get some different results. I think that's actually kind of interesting at the end of the day. So that wraps up our Tables and Towers case tournament. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. See your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace. patrons. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.